The legendary No1 headband. It promises power to anyone who owns it. Unlimited power, immortality. It comes at a significant cost, but many seek its power in this unfair world. Afro Samurai is in great anguish, far greater than he ever had. In his former master's home, he lives in isolation, feeling the pain of nothingness. Lacking any sense of purpose after taking revenge on justice, the No1 headband bearer, Afro Samurai, spends his days making wooden sculptures of historical figures and has not fought a duel in years. He remembers a time when he still traveled, when he pretended to be a wandering monk. Other samurai constantly attack him, with twin fencers ambushing him on a bridge. Regardless, Afro outmatches both fencers, shredding them into ribbons with a couple of moves. More samurai continue to ambush Afro, some even using grenade launchers to kill him, but to no avail. Afro washes the bridge with a blood bath. He continues to dream, only to have his father, Rokitaro, visit him. Crucified in hell, his father beckons his name. Afro continues to live his life in isolation, praying for his sins every day and carving figures from wood. Jino, his sworn brother, who is now an emotionless cyborg, and his sister, Lady Sio, rush to his place, attacking him in his weakened state. Both ambushed and beat him severely, crushing him to an inch of his life. Lady Sio rebukes him for his crimes and the hundreds he's already killed. Sio, a mysterious woman who suffered because of the actions of Afro, seeks to torture Afro in an attempt to restore justice. They taunt Afro, taking both the headband and his deceased father's mandible from his grave. Lady Sio tells Afro that they will resurrect Rokitaro, threatening to torture him and use him for vengeance. They challenge Afro to find the No2 headband and take both items back from their hands. Due to the samurai code, Afro knows that he may not immediately challenge Sio for the No1 headband. Only the owner of the No2 headband may challenge the owner of the No1. Thus, Afro begins seeking out the owner of the No2 headband. The following day, with his home put to the torch, Afro tries to meditate when Ninja pops out of nowhere. He checks up on Afro, commenting on the state of his blade and the people who ambushed him. Afro prepares for his upcoming journey. In a faraway lair, Lady Sio, Jino, and Darman start the resurrection process for Rokitaro, planning to create an ultimate being from the former No1. Darman prepares all the necessary resources, all for Lady Sio's whim. Meanwhile, Afro visits a nearby blacksmith to reforge his blade. Ninja discourages him, asking him to stop and continue living a peaceful life. Afro declines, pushing forward to meet the smith. The craftsman resharpens Afro's sword to perfection, but some of Lady Sio's thugs surveil him from afar. Afro continues his travels around the Badlands, with Ninja annoying him. They eventually reach a town nearby, with most samurai waiting for Afro, preparing to strike after receiving information from Lady Sio's henchmen. Afro reaches the town, ambushing Afro. We learn that many of his attackers were families of Afro's former victims vowing revenge. As they attack him, Afro simply incapacitates them, intimidating everyone and showing mercy. Later that night, Afro reaches a local strip house, where local men enjoy the company of naked women. As he enters, he tracks down the last surviving member of the Empty Seven, Brother 3. Brother 3 offers Afro a deal. If he can beat him in a game of dice, then he will tell Afro the location of the No2 headband. If Afro loses, however, then Afro must be put to death. Afro agrees to play, but the game will be likely rigged. The competitors play rounds of Chohan, a game where a dealer shakes a pair of dice and players predict the outcome. Brother 3 wins the dice game easily, but Afro quickly discovers that he was cheating, threatening to kill him. Out of fear, Brother 3 reveals the No2 headband to be in the possession of Shitsuguro, located in a village to the west. Afro immediately sets out, passing through a cemetery where a voice rebukes Afro for his attempts to amend his life. Lady Sio continues to berate Afro, calling him a coward, and reminding him that Rokitaro's life is on the line. This angers Afro, giving him the resolve to hunt them down. Lady Sio, in turn, reassures her brother Jino that they will have their revenge. Later on, Afro tries to rest under a tree, meditating before continuing his journey. A man meets Afro on the road, carrying a child he abducted while another samurai pursues him from behind. The abductor tries to shoot Afro out of fear, but Afro cuts down the kidnapper instantly as a way to protect his identity. The father of the child, who happens to be Shitsuguro, is very grateful to Afro, offering him a drink in the nearby town where Afro was planning to rest. Afro accepts the offer, going to a nearby fireworks festival. Festivities happen all around, with golden floats and a massive cyberpunk awa-odori dance happening in the streets. Shitsuguro and Afro enjoy a cup of sake and a few sticks of odin, together with some sugiyaki. While having their drink, Shitsuguro tells Afro the story of him and his adopted son named Kotaro. Shitsuguro tells Afro that Kotaro was his best friend's son, murdered while attempting to obtain the second headband. The killer was someone with an afro with a slightly green tinge if you look close enough. Shitsuguro tries to keep the peace, presumably saying that Afro murdered his best friend. Shitsuguro promised to protect his best friend's son, adopting Kotaro in the process. Shitsuguro also obtained the number 2 headband. He invites Afro outside to fight him because he knows that Afro is there to kill him. Shitsuguro and Afro leave the restaurant owner, along with Kotaro, and head outside the city to fight. Near the riverbanks, Shitsuguro and Afro prepare to fight. Lady Sio's henchmen also prepare to ambush. Shitsuguro lectures Afro, wanting to prevent further bloodshed but unwilling to yield the headband. Both fighters battle, fighting in equal stance. Afro, however, finds it difficult to fight, overwhelmed by the speed and technique of Shitsuguro. He's also unwilling to kill in full, especially seeing Shitsuguro's noble cause. Afro does well defending himself against his superior foe until Shitsuguro uses a Kasari Fundo or weighted chain. The chain gives Shitsuguro unmatched reach due to its length, acting as a whip that can easily change direction, preventing Afro from predicting his opponent's attacks. Shitsuguro disarms Afro's Seiya while disabling his sword. Afro leads Shitsuguro into the city, right amid the festival. He leads him inside the float, creating a more enclosed space between them. Afro runs while Lady Sio's people shoot smoke grenades to engulf the battlefield and ambush both fighters. Lady Sio sends several men to kill Afro and Shitsuguro, hunting them amidst the crowd. Meanwhile, Kotaro, who was sleeping in the restaurant, wakes up, looking for his father outside on the battlefield. Bodies line up the streets, sliced into smaller pieces. After defeating Sio's men, Afro and Shitsuguro continue their fight, with the latter showing greater proficiency even with equal footing. Afro uses the DJ as a meat shield, capitalizing on Shitsuguro's neglect. He manages to kill Shitsuguro right before the eyes of Kotaro. Devastated, the child grieves over his adoptive father's corpse, recreating the same situation that led him to revenge. Afro then leaves the small town, walking the demonic path once more. On the bridge, Afro has a brief confrontation with Sio and Jino, the latter of which lectures Afro even more on the pain and hatred he breeds. Sio shows Afro a cloned, twitching head of Rokutaro, angering the samurai. Out of disbelief and disgust, Afro attacks Sio, but Jino intercepts his attack in time. Sio informs him to meet at the Cherry Hill, taunting him that his father will die a second, more painful death. The henchmen attack Afro, allowing for Sio to quickly escape with Jino. Fro remembers their younger days when Jino and himself visited Sio up the Cherry Tree Hill. Jino regularly checks up on his sister, who lives with their foster family. Sio regularly reports to her older brother, noting the arts she learned during her stay. Jino happily checks on his sister, meeting each other at some point in the past. The once cheery lady is now steely-eyed, protecting her brother. Darman is indignant about Lady Sio's actions but overwhelmed by horny thoughts regardless. She endlessly praises Darman but eventually abuses the vile scientist due to his actions toward his brother. Afro travels through the desert amid powerful sandstorms that give almost zero visibility. As he goes on his arduous travel, Kotaro follows Afro for several days, seeking to avenge his father's death. He loses consciousness, weak and dehydrated from the pursuit. Kotaro wakes up after an unknown amount of time under a shady rock, with a bottle of water placed next to him. He does not know who saved him, but he looks around, losing sight of his target. Soon, Lady Sio sends her henchmen against Afro, where we learn about Sio's adopted siblings, reconstructed as cyborgs. They travel in search of Afro, now walking atop craggy mountains. As Afro reaches a ruined town, he finds the Cherry Blossom Hill where they find their target and ambush him. The henchmen, wearing a Chinese lion mask, a Kohime mask, and a Hayotako mask, await under the tree, with Afro remembering who they are. The henchmen unravel their bodies, now cybernetically enhanced. They attack with the Kohime using flight and a laser axe while the Chinese lion fights with a flamethrower. the Hyodeko uses his motorcycle to attack, armed to the teeth with a rotating saw. They continue to attack, only for Afro to fight them toe-to-toe. Meanwhile, Seo watches over Darman as he completes the Rokutaro clone. With only 2 hours remaining to complete the regeneration, Seo looks for her people, only to realize Darman sent them to fight Afro. Out of impatience, Seo releases the unfinished clone of Rokutaro, preparing to head to the Cherry Blossom Hill. She murders Darman, who has now lost his value. The henchmen continue to attack Afro, attacking him one by one with their specialized weapons. Kohime successfully injures Afro, wounding his back. The henchmen continue to taunt him, only for Afro to overpower them one by one. Afro fights off their combined might, but Afro successfully kills them in a matter of minutes, chopping them into pieces. In a final move, the Hyodeko tries to self-destruct and bring Afro with him, only to completely fail. Afro meets Seo Jino and his clone father, truly convinced that this is the real Rokutaro. Ninja tries to convince him otherwise, leaving him to deal with the situation. Jino attacks Afro, unable to evade his injuries while fighting the cyborgs. Afro goes unconscious, having hallucinations of his father. Rokutaro shows utter disappointment. His father tells him that he is disappointed in him for not carrying the burden of the #1 headband. He wakes up only to find the Rokutaro clone ready to attack him. The Rokutaro clone proceeds to viciously beat up Afro, with Seo enjoying every moment. Afro refuses to fight back, believing this is truly his father reincarnated. Rokutaro chokes him to unconsciousness as Jino looks on, remembering the halcyon days of their youth. Jino is unable to withstand the sight of his former friend dying, attacking the Rokutaro clone out of rage. Afro is on the brink of death once again, causing Jino to defend him. However, the clone is too strong, quickly dispatching Jino, slicing him limb per limb. Seo attacks the clone to defend her brother, but the clone is too strong, quickly killing her in a matter of seconds. The clone stabs Jino and Seo in one swoop, killing the siblings once and for all. Before their death, Jino regains his memories, giving one final goodbye. As they die, the electricity from Jino's body resuscitates Afro, restarting his heart. Rokutaro takes the #1 headband from Seo and wears it, while Afro puts on his #2 headband and challenges the Rokutaro clone. He finally realizes that his father has died long before, ready to fight his father. They exchange final blows, giving it their all. Afro walks away from the place he met Seo while Katara reaches the location. He wears the #1 headband, giving him the #2 headband, ready to await the child once he's ready. Afro walks into the distance, ready to await his next challenger on Mount Shumi.